And a very good morning to you, Grenada, and the rest of the world. It's a Monday morning as we thankfully begin a brand new week here on the Spice Isle. Today, the 8th day of April 2019. Folks, this morning we're going to turn things around a little bit. Everything you see on the website there on Facebook and Grenada Broadcast, everything's going to be in. But there's also something else that I wanted to add here as a bit of a surprise for you in the first 10 minutes or so of our program. I want you to take a look. You'll see two gentlemen sitting in here with me bright and early this morning. There they are. On the right is Pastor John Lewis, who is with the Grenada Institute for Theology and Education. And on his left is Reverend Sam George, who is visiting the island for a little presentation, which is going to be made this week. They want to tell you what they're going to be doing, and I'm going to turn it right over to John. First of all, John, good to see you again, as always. How are you?
Thank you.
Just come here a little sec, and we'll bring that microphone down so that everybody can hear you. There you go.
Great, thank you. Good, it's good to be with you again, Brother George.
And this gentleman, I'm going to ask you to do the introduction and tell us all about him. Tell us about Pastor.
Great, so Dr. Sam George is with us for this week, and he's going to be involved with our theological education program here in Grenada.
Okay.
And we are delighted to have him here with us.
Very briefly, tell us, let's start with the GITE, the Grenada Institute for Theological Education.
Great.
What is it?
Well, it's an institute that caters for the development of leaders, pastors, younger leaders, and providing them a biblical backdrop for training and leadership development through our John Maxwell program in leadership development as well.
Okay. And the workshop, I want to hear about the workshop. This gentleman is visiting. I understand he's of Asian descent, and he's come a long way to be with you guys. Let me say good morning, Pastor, and welcome to Grenada.
Thank you very much, Brother George. It's great to be here, and it's an honor to come and see this beautiful island and beautiful people here and serve the local churches and leaders here.
And you're going to be telling the whole world about us.
Yeah, I get to go around the world quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I travel and teach and train and meet church leaders and ministry leaders in different parts of the world.
Okay.
And I live in Chicago. I'm originally from India.
Okay.
I've lived and worked and studied in different countries and constantly move about quite a bit. And my area of research and study and teaching is also about global migration and movement of people and why it is matters to Christianity. And
global migration. Interesting topic. You want to tell us a little bit about the reason why you chose to specialize in that area?
My upbringing, I just moved around quite a bit. My dad's job and took us to places and countries, and then I decided to major in engineering and business and was hired by an American company and gave me a huge responsibility to cover businesses in several countries. And so my life was marked by kind of constant mobility, and both for work and home and upbringing and all that. And so kind of finally when I felt called to ministry, I kind of saw my life. I was a pastor at the local church, and I was working with community and immigrant communities, and then decided to do a doctoral research on a migration of people from Asia and different parts of the world.
Okay.
And so kind of my life is marked by it and a sense of call, but it's also become a major defining issue of our times. More people are on the move unlike any time in history, both volitional migration and forced migration, the current refugee crisis, what's happening in Europe and Middle East and Africa. So I got to travel through and try to see what's happening and what God is doing in the midst of that.
Okay.
What are some signs of hope, and what the church and what God's people are doing and what God is doing among some of the greatest humanitarian crisis.
It's amazing to sit back and see how he operates. Eh?
Yeah.
You know, we don't have a lot of time this morning, so I want you to get right into the workshop. Tell us what the workshop is about and exactly what you would like to see it accomplish here.
Yeah, 3 evenings. We're going to look at one is the people on the move, what we call as the kind of global migration phenomena. We want to kind of take a closer look at that. I want to kind of bear upon also the Caribbean diaspora, how Caribbeans are moving and who is coming into Grenada, where from people from Grenada are going. It's an important issue for the church here in Grenada. And then second day we will look at migration in the Bible. If you were to look at the scripture narratives, Old Testament as well as New Testament, it's a story of migrants. They call us a meta-narrative of diaspora, movement of people. All people of the major players in the scripture are all displaced people. And
so it's a historical thing. Migration is nothing new.
Nothing new.
Yeah.
But the scale and the direction and the multi-directionality and the volume of it is unprecedented. It's becoming a political issue, social issues, economic issues. Walls are going up, new laws are getting written, more wars and more conflicts and more famine, and all of them is forcing people to dislocate to places for survival, to opportunities, to education, through marriage. So the mobility of people is very important to Christianity. All through Christianity's history, mobility has shaped and reshaped Christianity. So we want to look at the 21st century, what God is going to do and is doing right now in these decades.
And what do you believe he is going to do? Because I was going to ask you, whether or not this migration is a good thing that's happening. But what do you think God is up to?
Yeah, most migrants are Christians. Christians are not bound to a geography or a place or a culture. They say if you are a Christian, you will travel, you will become mobile. You're more connected to more places in the world because Christianity is more global now than ever in its history. And it's also, the migrants becomes a force in mission. Because we call it, migration is a theologizing experience. Once you get displaced, you want to hold on, you question some of the assumptions that shaped you and culture and value, and to the new place, you want to look at whether it's true or not. So those contrast and comparison, and you begin to ask about the ultimate questions of life, origin to ultimacy and what eventually is true. And so issues of God comes up. And many migrants in new places of their settlement become Christians, or they embrace Christianity and get involved in the church. And so they also become a force for transformation in their ancestral homelands.
You know, I see that in places like Europe, there is a concern about migration, and to a lesser extent, I see it's happening now with Donald Trump in the United States. Is this something that people in undeveloped countries like ours, or a lesser developed country like ours, should be concerned about?
I think more than the concern is, the scale at which migration is happening now is unstoppable. It might change direction. It might change, the number of migrants going to some regions of the world, to some places. But sometimes, even developed countries, it's foreign policies, economic trade, communication links. We are all more connected through Facebook, social media, technologies. We can travel faster, easily, quickly, at cheaper rate than ever before. So we're going to gain, every 150 years ago, we gained significant gains in mobility, human mobility, and we are at the cusp of a major transformation in the transportation technology. And so we'll travel faster, cheaper, easier, and there are more opportunity. We are aware of more opportunities elsewhere. So young people are mobile. You cannot contain them. It's not reversible in any way. We have come far ahead in this process. But societies are not ready to embrace and accept in some places. Europe, we have seen some backlashes. At the same time, the economies of, say, Germany and Sweden and France is utterly dependent on foreign workers. They cannot sustain their economies. That same thing is happening in the Silicon Valley in America, and several farm sectors to other sectors in the industry. So we have level of globalization has integrated the society to a level that we are dependent on foreign workforce to come and contribute to our economies. And so it is irreversible. But what we don't know is, in the process, God is drawing people to himself. So that's, for example, even in Europe, there are over 500 Arabic-speaking churches just in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So these are Syrian, Iraqi, Afghani, Irani, who have sought refuge in Germany, in many cities across Germany, have started their own fellowships in Arabic and Farsi and Pashtun and some of these languages, where are war-torn regions of Iraq and Syria. The crisis in Syria has just spread. More than half the country is dispersed, forcefully displaced. But so many have turned to Christ. But we must remember, Syria was also a center of Christianity in the first century.
What's that?
It was a Christian center. Large number of them were Christians once upon a time.
The final question I want to ask is, you mentioned that a lot of the people who are migrating are Christians, and a lot of us Christians here in the world. Yet there is so much apprehension about this migration process.
Yeah.
Now, John and Sam, listen, as Christians, we believe what God has taught us, that we should love each other. Isn't there some conflict between the teaching and what we are actually practicing?
Sure. I think we are all in many ways ethnocentric. We kind of look at the world from our unique vantage point. We are also very selfish, survival, my own well-being, and the idea of sacrifice, loving the other, something that costs you. We are always a little apprehensive.
Yeah.
But the God who said love your neighbor, he also said go to the ends of the earth. But we also want to see that, for example, a place like Grenada, young men and women are coming to study here in Grenada. And what does it mean for a local church to be engaged in ministering to these young people who are coming from around the world? And they in turn become agents of mission and transformation around the world. So sitting here in Grenada, you can really impact the world, because people from those part of the world are coming here. And those linkages that they get established, that can be a force for the good, force for love, and force for peace, and agents of transformation. The biases and the stereotype exist between races and cultures and nations of the land will come down when we build friendship with people from other cultures and other nations when they are here, or when we go to other places. So we need to be intentional in mobilizing church to give them a vision for mission, and they think kingdom, think God's reign on the world. When we begin to see through that lens, I think all our socio-historical, cultural biases will come down, and we'll give a new sense of love for each other.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully. John, I wish we had more time, but for those of you who are interested in what you just heard Pastor Sam talking about here, John, I want you to once again remind our viewers where and when they can hear a lot more.
Great. So we start on Wednesday of this week. That's the 10th of April to the 12th of April. So it's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's 5 o'clock right here in Grenada at the Springs Evangelical Church. Dr. Sam has brought some of his own books with him, and so encourage our own local participation to take advantage of this. This is just a snippet of what you will hear over these next 3 evenings. And let me encourage you to give me a call, 420-1100, or send me an email at miagrenada@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you very much, Pastor John Lewis and Pastor Sam George. And folks, you heard the details. Get out there and learn a little bit more. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I hope that everything goes well. When next you come back here to Grenada, come visit us again.
Sure.
And hopefully we'll have a lot more time to talk. All right. Okay, folks. I see here on Facebook. Oh, boy. Everybody's on there this morning. T.F. Richards, Fragrance Emmanuel, Sharon Roberts, Peter Bishop, Bernard Gilbert, Fitzroy Adams, Kipling Francis, Winston Paul, Carla Clement. The whole mob's there this morning. Nice to see you all. And we'll take a little break, and we will come on back with a tribute to Lou Smith. And we'll tell you a bit about that in just a wee bit.
Boy, you, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, you can cause power outages, or even worse, you can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADAB. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADAB, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Alrighty, folks, tell you what else is coming up. In just a wee bit, we're going to get to that tribute to Lou Smith. Then we have the national report for you. And following that, we're going to be hearing from the attorney for Gemma Bain-Thomas. He was here with us yesterday for the weekend edition of Sundays with George Grant, and we thought we'd put an excerpt out from that because he had some very interesting things to say. And then, we haven't heard from Anthony DeRiggs for a little while, but this morning, he's got a piece which is captioned, Grand Move and Grand Charge by Anthony DeRiggs. First, Lou Smith.
Appreciation for your contribution. The kids have hard work. Grenadian media icon. Your legacy will live on and on. You prove to the world that's where you belong. With the help of God, you will get your due. With the people, pay tribute to you. Tribute to you. Your love and kindness, respect truly best. Anywhere you pass, friendliness and class. Yes, my brother Lou, we will always be proud of you. Proud of you. Lou Smith, you are an icon, a force to be reckoned. Best in the Caribbean, a real true legend. When we going to walk in the morning, 5 o'clock, on the radio you talking, sweet music you playing, everybody listening. Lou Smith, you are an icon, a force to be reckoned. Best in the Caribbean, a radio legend. We could hear you jamming soca, calypso, para, sweet pan music. Reggae groovy, jab jab with your sweet, sweet voice. Music so nice, we don't have no choice. We're living in paradise. Everything's so nice on the eyes of spice. Good morning, this is Lou. How do you do? Wisdom in abundance, you pay your part, straight from the heart. For every boy and girl, you set an example. Without a doubt, they will always follow you. Whips and Phillies, JBN radio stations. For Panorama, you to command. Command your presentation in journalism, delivery with style. You did it with pride. Thank you, MB Lou. We will always emulate you. Emulate you. Lou Smith. best in the Caribbean, a real true legend. When we going to walk in the morning, 5 o'clock, on the radio you talking, sweet music you playing, everybody listening. Blue Smith, you are an icon, a force to be reckoned. Best in the Caribbean, a radio legend. We could hear you jamming soca, calypso, para, sweet pan music, reggae groovy, jab with your sweet, sweet voice. Music so nice, we don't have no choice. We're living in paradise. Everything so nice on the Isles of Spice. Good morning, this is Lou. How do you do? Good evening, this is Lou. How do you do? The son of the soil, you gave us your all. This journey is long. Yes, you made us proud. With dedication to friends and family, honor, dignity, loyalty to country. Always lending a hand to your fellow man. With consideration, advice to everyone. Everyone. Humble in the West, humor at its best. Gifted and grateful, never ever boastful. Before our very eyes, we have seen you victimized. Victimized. Blue Smith, you are an icon, a force to be reckoned. Best in the Caribbean, a real true legend. When we going to walk in the morning, 5 o'clock, on the radio you talking, sweet music you playing, everybody listening. Blue Smith, you are an icon, a force to be reckoned. Best in the Caribbean, a radio legend. We could hear you jamming soca, calypso, para, sweet pan music, reggae groovy, jab with your sweet, sweet voice. Music so nice, we don't have no choice. We're living in paradise. Everything so nice on the Isles of Spice. One of the best, you passed the test, truly blessed. You are a treasure, made by the Creator, our radio master.
Ain't that something? Ain't that something? Lou Smith, off the air, but certainly not forgotten. That piece, by the way, was done by somebody by the name of Burgess Quako McPhee. Thank you very much to the person who sent that to me over the weekend. Pilgrims, it's now 24 minutes after the hour. Let's get directly into the national report.
The Eastern Zone are the winners of the inaugural National Secondary School Games, which saw new records being established at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium on Friday. The Eastern Zone also captured the final 2 races, the girls and boys 4x400 meter relays open. We have a recap from reporter Sherry Ann Noel, who spent the day interviewing many of the athletes.
There were 4 zones, 60 events, and at the end we had a winner. The inaugural winner of the 2019 National Secondary School Games is the athletes that form the Eastern Zone, the schools of St. David's Catholic Secondary, St. Joseph's Convent, St. Andrew, the Grenville Secondary School, St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School, and Grenada Christian Academy. Now, we had a number of splendid performances both on the track and on the field. We had all who won actually had new records. We had students who said many thanks to the government for giving them the opportunity, as it was their last time to perform on the tracks in their schools, to represent their schools. We had the individual champs in the under 15. We had Shanti Augustine from the Southern Zone. She had 12 points. We also had in the under 15 boys, we had Tejan Peter King, also of the Southern Zone, with 18 points. Under 17 girls went to Kishana Phillip of Southern Zone, and the under 17 boys, Jadon Tika of the Northern Zone. The under-21 girl went to Gudday Thomas of the Eastern Zone with 24 points. The under-21 boy was Jared Sylvester with 14 points. And the overall champs for the girls was Gudday Thomas and Tejan Peter King for the boys. It was indeed a day of keen rivalry. The athletes competed on both on the field and the tracks, and they are looking forward to see if their records will be broken when there is a National Secondary School Games in 2020. Hats off to the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Sports, who collaborated to ensure that the students got the opportunity to exhibit their talents here on the tracks.
During the official opening ceremony, Education Minister the Honorable Emmeline Pear said the inaugural event bears testimony of government's commitment to the development of the nation's athletes. Some of the athletes who competed before an impressive crowd thanked the government for the opportunity that the Games provided.
We believe as a government that every child deserves every possible opportunity to grow, every possible opportunity to succeed. And that is the only reason that we took that very bold decision to hold these games. We all believe in the all-round development of children. We believe in the opportunity for children to learn, for students to learn, and that is exactly why we are here today. Because we believe that the opportunities that they receive and those who received in the past, we can speak today about those who have excelled in terms of their recognition internationally and how they were responsible and how they were able to be good ambassadors promoting our country regionally and internationally. But we can also speak today about those in the past who never thought that they would ever have an opportunity to further their education. And it was sports in many cases that gave so many persons, including many of our physical education teachers, many of our coaches, that opportunity today to have a career that they are proud of, that they are passionate about. And so we don't take for granted, ladies and gentlemen, the opportunities that we can provide to our students.
Organizers say this will not be a one-off meet and they're hoping to do it again next year. As mentioned, athletes from the Eastern Zone won the final two races, the girls and boys 4x400 meter open. Let's look back at the action.
It's the penultimate event. They're on the mark.
And they're off. It's a smooth, fast start there from the athletes. All getting off to a good start, but it's the Eastern Zone stamping the early dominance on this event, opening up a sizable lead at the moment, just about 15 meters, and it continues to grow. Eastern Zone there out front, followed by the Southern Zone as they head down the backstretch. The Northern Zone and the Western Zone are in the mix, but with just about 220 meters to go in the first lap, it is the Eastern Zone. They continue to dominate this event, and they are setting their intentions clear that yes, they have won the championship, but they want to do so in style by winning the 4x400 meters girls. Here comes Gita Harry from the Southern Zone, looking to close the gap on the first leg. She is doing so successfully, but Eastern Zone, the athlete from the Eastern Zone, she will hand over first, followed by the athlete from the Southern Zone.
The Eastern Zone off to a great start here, as they have maybe a 20-meter lead over the Southern Zone, and then we have the Northern Zone and Western Zone. But there goes the Eastern Zone. It's going to be a tremendous effort here by the Southern Zone to close that gap on the Eastern Zone. And I'm sure Gudday Thomas is somewhere in the mix here to anchor it home for the Eastern Zone. It's going to be difficult here for the Southern Zone. I make it about 80 meters is the lead that the Eastern Zone is enjoying over the Southern Zone. What a lead, what a performance here already on the second leg of the penultimate event, the 4x400 meters open for girls. The Eastern Zone, as we see an interesting development for second position now, as we see the athlete out of the Northern Zone was catching up on the athlete from the Southern Zone. but she's outwinded now. The Southern Zone making a run back, but it's going to be difficult for her to catch up with the athlete from the Eastern Zone. The Eastern Zone is going to hand over first. And there they go.
And it's Eastern Zone continuing to maintain the lead of just about 60 meters or so. The second handover about to be completed. Northern Zone, Western Zone. But out front is the Eastern Zone, just about 60 meters as she heads down the back straight on the third lap. The Eastern Zone continues to lead in the final female event here at the National Secondary School Games for 2019. It is the Eastern Zone maintaining that lead. It continues to grow, just about 60 or so meters to go with 150 meters left before the third and final baton exchange. The Eastern Zone continues to extend and open out the lead. Strong performances there from the athlete from the Eastern Zone, and she is motoring down the home straight to hand over the baton for the third time as they seek gold in the final female event.
Well, that's the final handover, and the Eastern Zone with a very, very commanding lead. It looks here like Janaya Thomas. Is it Janaya Thomas? But whoever it is, it's going to be tough to catch up with them. The Eastern Zone with a commanding lead here in the final event for the girls. She can actually coast home from here on. It's a jog in the park for her. She's not challenged by any stretch. What a team effort by the Eastern Zone. A good way for the girls to close the curtain on the inaugural secondary school games. That's the final event for the girls. And the Eastern Zone has a commanding lead here. There's no need for she to exert to the fullest extent, but I'm sure she'd want to return a good time for her team, and she would give it all towards the finish line. As she enters into the home straight and heading towards the finish line, the Eastern Zone it is. The Eastern Zone looking good. The race is actually for second and third, as there's an interesting development there. But the Eastern Zone wins it now. Let's see what's happening for second and third, as it's going to be a fight between the Southern Zone and the Northern Zone. But the Southern Zone is in second. The Southern Zone will pick up the silver medal, and the Northern Zone will pick up the bronze. The Western Zone will have to settle for the fourth position.
And it's the start of the event. Very good start there. The athlete from the Northern Zone, he's out quickly. So too is the athlete from the Eastern Zone, who actually settles now in front of the pack, followed by the athlete from Southern Zone and Northern Zone in the back, a bit boxed out by the two athletes in front of him. But it's the Eastern Zone, Southern Zone, Western Zone. The athlete from the Northern Zone falling back a bit, but it continues to be a dominant performance from the athletes from the eastern side of the island. They have the early lead with just about 150 meters left in the first exchange, and they lead by just about 20 or so meters. Eastern Zone, Southern Zone, Western Zone and the Northern Zone, but it is continuing to be a blue afternoon, a royal blue afternoon here at the national stage. They have opened up a lead of just about 30 meters or so over Northern Zone. The first exchange, Northern Eastern Zone.
The Eastern Zone is off in a flash. The first handover, and they're trailed by the Northern Zone. The Southern Zone is actually in fourth position at the moment. Let's see what's going to happen here. The Northern Zone looking very comfortable. Sorry, the Eastern Zone looking very comfortable going down the back straight. The Eastern Zone it is. And for the sake of the fans, we're hoping that it can be a much closer encounter. Maybe 80 meters lead here, but look at the second, third, and fourth. They bunch closely together here. The Southern Zone is making a comeback, but look at the lead that is been established by the Eastern Zone. It's going to be difficult to catch them, but look at the Southern Zone, the Western Zone. That looks like Neil Peters there for the Western Zone, but the Eastern Zone with a commanding lead here as they make the second and over. The Eastern Zone in the lead.
The Eastern Zone, the lead about 60 meters or so, but the excitement is really for second and third and fourth in this event. The second is second and over second, the Northern Zone. The Western Zone, the Northern Zone in the mix, also to the Southern Zone. But out front, continuing their dominant performances in the 4x400 meters. The boys, they continue to extend their lead. The Eastern Zone boys, they are leading with just about 600 meters left in the event. A lead of just about 50 meters or so. Continues to hold on. Here comes the athletes from the Northern Zone. Look at the athlete from the northern zone, turns on the afterburners, looking to close down the gap. It is getting exciting. It is certainly getting exciting. And the lead almost evaporates. The athlete from the northern zone, he is closing the gap, clawing away. He's just about passes him and hands over first. The northern zone, they are in the lead ahead in the final lap.
What a run by Deontay Williams for the northern zone. The northern zone has taken over the lead, but the eastern zone is not going to give up just like that. It's going to be a battle for the finals. Is this another Junior Charles moment? It was right around this point when he went past Jeffrey. Is the athlete from the northern zone going to catch up with him? The eastern zone has now moved into the lead, trailed by the northern zone. And then there is the western zone. What is going to happen? Is there any fight left in the tank here? Is there a fight by the northern zone? The eastern zone back in the lead and powering away. He looks good going into the home straight. Is he going to catch him? A fight back here by the northern zone. East zone, northern zone, east zone, northern zone. Who is it going to be? Looks like the eastern zone. What a run back here. But we cannot discredit the run by Deontay Williams on the third leg for the northern zone. What a fit and finish to this game.
This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Big business don't participate.
Continuing the news, the impact of climate change on the economic, infrastructural and sustainable development of Grenada was the focus of the 150th meeting of the Sustainable Development Council on Friday. The meeting, which was held at the Public Workers Union Conference Room, focused on sustainable development and climate change, infrastructure and energy, health and disaster management. The Honorable Gregory Bowen, Minister for Infrastructure Development, Public Utilities, Energy, Transport and Implementation, whose focus was on sustainable development and infrastructure and energy, said development must be looked at in a different light as a result of climate change. He used the example of construction, saying that the negative impact of climate change must be taken into consideration.
The infrastructure component of sustainable development is therefore critical because it falls into two things. Infrastructure. The most important one may be the soft one, the education, and the people themselves getting involved and knowledgeable. But the infrastructural component always follow. Whether it's a policy, whether it's a law, we must build. And we in the Ministry of Infrastructure, we are preparing ourselves for this. We are not there yet, but we are getting there. And implementation is a significant component of our ministry. So when we're implementing now, we do not have to say, well, is this school being built on time and within cost? We have to go with a fine-tuned code and look at what is there. Where are the mitigation efforts within this building?
Health Minister, the Honorable Nicholas Steele, who addressed the subject of sustainable development and health, says we must take seriously the effects of climate change on the sector.
We have seen Zika and chikungunya come through, and dengue, the warning for this year. Not a new strain, but a previously non-existing or a strain of dengue that we haven't seen for decades in this region. Question was asked about rat infestation as well. What is happening is that when I was growing up, I knew that there was a definite rainy season and dry season. And you could literally mark that on Corpus Christi, it would be raining, or on April, it will be raining by the middle of April or so. These periods are extending. The hurricane season is extending, and as such, what we have happening is our rainy season is coinciding with our tourism season, when people travel. And as such, mosquito-borne diseases are spreading because it's coinciding, not just here, but in Southern Europe, Mediterranean area, so it's crossing from Africa over. So we have to build and strengthen health resources.
The other presenter was Senator Simon Steele, Minister for Climate Resilience, the Environment, Forestry, Fisheries, Disaster Management and Information. He says climate change undermines our ability to achieve sustainable development and touches every aspect of our economic development.
When we look at it within the broad areas, economically, in some of the action that government has taken to build greater resilience, it's not just from a physical perspective. Resilience speaks to economic resilience. It speaks to social resilience. It speaks to environmental resilience. So we have to look at this thing holistically. And some of the actions that government has taken, whether it is through the homegrown structural adjustment program and building fiscal resilience. So whether that is through the introduction of the fiscal responsibility laws, debt management laws, how to put Grenada on a sustainable path of fiscal responsibility which builds that economic resilience. Whether it is the area of climate financing, again, a core mandate of the Ministry of Climate Finance, together with the Ministry of Finance, together with Foreign Affairs, together with the Ministry of Implementation, is to see how we can access as much of the climate financing that is available, the international resources that are available.
The Parliamentary Elections Office says the addendum to the current list of electors as of March 31st, 2019 is published for inspection, the raising of claims, objections and revision. The office says this process runs for 7 days from April 8th to 15th, 2019. The addendum can be found in each constituency at post offices, police stations, medical stations, parliamentary elections constituency offices and other public places. The closing date for submission of information to the registration officer in connection with any claim for inclusion in the addendum or objection to any name which should not be included in the addendum is April 15, 2019. The Parliamentary Elections Office adds that everyone, and particularly those who registered during the quarter January to March 2019, is advised to inspect the addendum to ensure that his or her name is properly included. The addendum should also be checked to establish whether there is any name included in it that should not be there. And that's the National Report. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson.
Alrighty, folks, there we go with your GIS National Report. Folks, if you find me a little bit rushed this morning, it's because, we had to accommodate the folks at the top of the program this morning, so I'm really rushing ahead. But there are some comments that were made following the piece that we showed the tribute to Lou Smith a little while ago, and I think it's important that I share those with you. Hazel Ferguson is saying, great song for a great icon. God bless you, Lou Smith. Kipling Francis says, great song for a great man. And T.F. Richards saying, wonderful composition. Simple words made the message even clearer. Right on the money, T.F. Absolutely. Anthony DeRiggs says, God bless you, Lou. He made his mark. I was glad I got the opportunity to shake his hand and thank him last month when he was here. And finally, Carla Clement says, "Good morning, Uncle Lou Smith. Thank you for all your contributions to good quality radio programs." Folks, quite the discussion yesterday about the legal claims facing the Mitchell administration as a result of court judgments which have gone against them. It is important that Grenadians understand the type of behavior which keeps getting government into hot water. And yesterday, attorney for one of the beneficiaries of these claims, Rohan Phillip, provided a detailed description. We're not going to play the whole thing for you, just a part.
Basically, the situation is this. There was a national election held in Grenada, as we would recall. That would have been in February, I think, of 2013. Immediately following prior to the election, Gemma was appointed and serving as the cabinet secretary, the secretary to the cabinet of Grenada. This is a post created and established by the Constitution of Grenada, and appointments to that post is done by the Governor General acting on the advice of the Public Service Commission. Following the election, as with any proper public servant, she attended at the Prime Minister-elect, then Prime Minister, with the necessary reports and so on. As part of that conversation, it was made known to her that the Prime Minister would wish to have persons he's comfortable with, working with him. Bain-Thomas then indicated, while she's ready, willing, and able to perform her duties, she is prepared to step aside if that is what is necessary, so that the Prime Minister could be comfortable in constituting or forming his team. There was some initial discussion of an appropriate assignment. Evidently, with someone of Bain-Thomas's experience and seniority, in fact, she was, or the office of the Cabinet Secretary is the head of the public service. So it's the most senior public office in the country. There weren't many assignments that she could be properly put to, except she consented to them. Attempts were made, and in fact, she accepted an assignment to do with some level of public sector reform and so on, an area I think she's eminently qualified to treat with. That department falls under the portfolio of the Prime Minister. And before long, again, certain accusations and complaints were made, to the point where it was suggested that Mrs. Bain-Thomas was divulging information out of certain meetings and like allegations. And so Mr. Bain-Thomas asked to be relieved, properly so. I mean, you can't be functioning in an office and the person you report to, your supervisor, has those kind of concerns. She wrote numerous letters to the Public Service Commission. Many of them, if not all, went unanswered. And ultimately, she received communications after being asked to take leave, after being asked, granted leave, that she was being transferred definitively to the post of Executive Director to the Anti-Money Laundering Commission. Quite interestingly, that was a relatively new post, created by statute just a few years ago. An appointment to that office is by the Public Service Commission. So what did the Public Service Commission do? They appointed her to that post, or purported to appoint her, because as it turns out, it was clearly unconstitutional. And at the same time, a letter came from the Office of the Governor General indicating that she will be transferred from the Office of Secretary to the Cabinet to a post to be determined by the Public Service Commission. we were of the view that couldn't fly, and as such we brought proceedings claiming that the Governor General would have abdicated her responsibility to properly consider Ms. Bain-Thomas's case and make a transfer if that is what she determined was necessary upon the advice of the Public Service Commission. We made certain other claims in terms of damages and so on, declarations. Many of them was not granted at the High Court first instance, but the trial judge did find that her removal from the Office of Cabinet Secretary was improper. But he went on to hold that her appointment to the office of the executive director would be amount to an assignment of duties there. We were not happy with that, and so we challenged that ruling to the extent that he said that her appointment was a proper assignment. And the Court of Appeal agreed that the Public Service Commission did not have the power to appoint her as they did. While they hold the power to appoint to the Office of Executive Director, they clearly did not have the power to appoint someone coming from the Office of Secretary to the Cabinet to such a post. And in fact, such an appointment amounted, or was very likely to amount to, a demotion in office. There were a number of other exaggerating circumstances. I mean, for one, an officer in Grade M, and we only have 2 such officers in Grenada, as head of the Public Service Commission, being transferred to a post where she was to report to an officer in Grade L, a junior officer, albeit the Attorney General, but in the structure of the service, and that may be an area that need looking into. But as the current structure is, the Attorney General, when a public officer, is at Grade L, and a junior officer in terms of rank to the Secretary to the Cabinet. And she found herself supposing to report to the Attorney General. I dare tell you, her experience was far different. She was reporting to much more junior staff. Instructions was coming to her from her assistant, rather than she giving her assistant's instruction and the like. Well, I'm sure it happened before, because I tend to hold the view nothing is new under the sun. Okay. Any case you come across, there is one somewhere else. Many a times, though, many of these things don't get brought to the fore for one reason or another. And as such, the Court of Appeal found that she had been improperly removed, and her removal amounted to a termination of her service in the public service. What that meant, she was then to be compensated for the breach of her contract in the public service, and also to be compensated for the breach or infringement of her constitutional right to be properly removed or to enjoy certain security of tenure while in the public service, and in particular holding such senior office. What flowed from that is that Ms. Bain-Thomas was granted both compensatory damages, that is damages to take care of her salary allowance and emoluments for the rest of her working life, that is until she's age 60, at which time she will then be entitled to her pension and gratuity. And lately, only March 12th past, the court found that she should have been awarded, that she should be granted vindicatory damages in the sum of $75,000. While that is a new high in the context of this type of case, and similarly Ms. Bain-Thomas is happy with it, I think it was rather conservative when one looked to the particular circumstances Ms. Bain-Thomas had to endure, her level of seniority and otherwise. But the reality, judges are usually rather conservative in this area of law, and it is a relatively new area. It is a relatively new area of law. And so while one would think that the case could have warranted a higher figure, one could equally understand why the learned master would have been inclined to grant as he did. Yes.
Do the laws here in Grenada allow for charges to be brought not only against the government, but also against managers who take illegal actions, you know, which wind up costing taxpayers money?
The area of law that will treat with that is really misfeasance in public office, which is an ancient, if I may say so, it's not the most modern of cause of actions. It has been very restrictive historically in terms of how one could make out a case or prove a case. I must say to you, though, that the Caribbean Court of Justice in recent times have seemingly make some inroads or some modernization to that area of law, which gives some hope. It's an area of law I have an interest in and I have been looking at, but at this point I cannot say that it's more than just some hope. For one, it is seemingly possible for such cases to be brought mainly by the government itself or by the Office of the Attorney General. The cases we have seen thus far, that was how they were brought. Usually on the change of the government, that's what we have seen. The Attorney General bringing cases against former managers of the system, ministers and otherwise. Whether that means it is the only way, I wouldn't say it is, but that's what has happened thus far. And as I said, it's an area of law like this general area, which is constitutional, judicial review, those kind of areas. The courts tend to be quite conservative, but we are seeing some rather enlightened rather, position coming particularly from the CCJ in the area of constitutional interpretation and that area. So there is some hope.
So there may have been some good to the CCJ after all.
There is always some good about the CCJ. Yeah. I was always an advocate of the CCJ.
I think a lot of people were advocates.
But there were also issues with the process and the manner in which it was done.
Process.
I dare tell you, the first aspect of the Will Thompson case, and we may speak about that a little more, when the Court of Appeal ruled against us, had it been to the CCJ we were to appeal, we would have definitely filed an appeal. But we would have had to have recourse to the Privy Council. And for various reasons, it just wasn't practical. Key of which was the finances to do it.
Okay, so bottom line is that you're in at the tail end of this. You've been the one handling the two most recent cases, but I think history will show that this particular type of thing goes back quite a ways, because if I'm not mistaken, just over the last couple of weeks, government began paying out claims, not necessarily for wrongful dismissal, but claims that, you know, have come due as a result of court rulings.
That is my understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
We have seen, well, I have seen correspondence where they indicate that they were in the process of doing that, and they were asking various law firms, one who came to my chambers, to indicate what they may have had outstanding. Whether they have actually started paying, I don't know.
Okay. And that, sir, is the big issue, because as I understand it, let's take Gemma Bain's, for example. In the case of Gemma Bain's, the first ruling resulted in her being entitled to something like just under $700,000?
Correct.
Okay, and now you're adding another $75,000 on top of that. Gemma was sitting in the same chair you were sitting in last week, and I asked her, how hopeful is she? That you're smiling, Rohan. How hopeful is she that she's going to be seeing any of this stuff? And you know, she tried to be hopeful and paint a bright picture. There's a level of optimism, but deep down inside, if you took a good look at her, you could tell she's probably, joke you're making, you know?
Well, we have to be mindful of the realities and certainly of past experience. All our successive governments have had a history of not being very diligent in paying
claims,
debts, and judgments in particular. We, as it relates to this case, I must tell you, the engagement with the government continues. They have made a proposal. We have responded to the proposal. They were very actively pursuing my response to the proposal. So I'm left with no choice but to take all of this to mean that there is some high level of will or expectation. Goodwill that they will pay. The former Attorney General, I must say, congratulations to him and his efforts to advance the process of the quantification and so on of the damages. Again, my own experience, had it not been his own personal role and intervention, we may yet have not had a final figure. So we're grateful for that. And as I said, the engagement in fact continues in terms of the modality of payment and so on. And so we're hopeful.
Rohan,
and in light of the recent announcement that they're paying debts, we may just be part of that.
You may be part of that. He's quasi-optimistic, as is Gemma. Rohan, listen, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know whether I should be asking this question or not. But you mentioned that a proposal has been made to you. Are you at? Can you explain to us what that proposal is?
I would not go into the specifics.
Okay.
But it was a proposal naturally to pay the judgment debt by installments over a period of time. As the litigant, obviously we want to be paid as soon as possible, in the fastest possible time. So a counter proposal was made, still to accept payment by installment, but requesting fewer installments and a higher payment sum by way of installments.
I have a question here from somebody who's listening to you in New York right now. Margaret Francis says, given the government's propensity not to pay, is it possible to put something like a lien on funds owed to the government by outside bodies, agencies, similar to what Taiwan did?
Well, it is possible. It is never easy to enforce a judgment against the state because the state, as we would appreciate, holds a special role in any society. A lien, or by other word, garnishing debts and so on, is one of the practices available to private citizens involved in civil litigation. I dare say, while there is laws that mandates the process by which judgments are to be enforced, again we have seen certain pronouncement, and the Eric Gary case is one in point, where our highest court, the Privy Council, says when debts are owed by the government, in particular debts for breaches of constitutional rights, as the Gary case was, it is open to the court to find creative and innovative ways to bring remedy or bring relief to the litigants in terms of satisfying the debts. But again, as you would see by merely citing the Eric Gary case, which came from the Privy Council, that was a case by way of enforcement. So if it is that there isn't that goodwill, yes, theoretically there are means of enforcing it, but it still means going through the whole process of litigation again. Because having decided what the judgment sum was in the Eric Gary case, when it was not paid, they had to start new proceedings, which took them all the way to the Privy Council to get to that quite enlightened judgment. So yes, there are certain avenues. It's not quite, or it may not operate quite in the same manner as the lien of which that person speak, but yes, you could get similar remedies.
Kipling Francis is asking, Mr. Rohan, is there, I'm not sure what this is, I hope you know, is there an FOIAI Grenada? If not, don't you think we badly need one? What's an FOIAI?
FO.
All right, Kipling, you stumped both. Do you know, Willie?
I don't.
No, none of us here know Kipling. Wheel and come again, sir. All right, Rohan, so you've got your chin up, just as does Gemma, that, you know, something will happen. And
hopeful.
We have to be hopeful. Notwithstanding the fact that this country, despite the 5% growth that we're hearing, you know, we are still going through difficult economic times. You're led to believe that things are all hunky-dory. I mean, just this over the past couple of weeks, I had to deal with a situation where on one of my programs, somebody was raising the fact that even though the government says, man, we're making money, thanks to the structural adjustment program, there's income coming in, we've got some savings in the kitty, plus the CBI program, last year did over $400 million, whereas the year before it was only $160 million or whatever. Despite all of that, we're saying that we cannot pay the pensions and gratuity, and so on and so forth. So the question is, are we going to be able to meet these obligations? By the way, Bob Marashow says here, FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act.
No, we do not have such an act.
We do not have such an act here.
No.
Okay, that takes care of that. Anthony Howard is asking, can taxpayers take legal action against the government for failure to act in the public good?
We think they can. Obviously, it would mean identifying the issue and crafting a claim. But if a sufficiently serious issue is raised, I think it is possible to bring such an action. In that the government is there, or a government is there to serve, and if it is found that there is a breach or a lapse in a particular way, I think it is possible that individuals who are affected either privately or if they could as a particular group be identified can take action.
That said, Rohan, there are two challenges facing the public. One, it involves costs.
Yes.
And not too many Grenadians are in a position to meet those costs. Okay? That's one. Two, Rohan, you and I know that there are a lot of lawyers who, even though deep in their hearts they may recognize, hey, this is a case that's worth taking on, for whatever reasons, and I leave you to speculate on what those reasons may be, they decide, nah, me ain't taking that one on. So those are two challenges, two reasons why a lot of cases or potential cases are just not brought. Am I correct?
Well, it is. I mean, a lawyer is free while your oath of office takes you to provide the best advice and to accept any retainer once you're capable of doing it. There are various reasons why a particular lawyer may not be able to treat with a case, and I wouldn't speculate as to why certain lawyers may not take certain case. I will wish to add, though, George, in our particular present dispensation, there is a third, much larger issue, I dare say.
Tell me.
The situation with our present court system.
Another one. Another one.
I mean, about a year and a half ago, Grenada was functioning albeit not in a permanent home, but in some temporary arrangement with 4 courts, 4 high court judges sitting at the same time. We're now down to 2, with both in temporary accommodation. Accommodations which are interrupted sometime on very short notice because of other activities that are to take place, and with no real hope. I mean, I know some things are being done, but with no real indication as to where we go from here and how soon. So it is a major challenge, I think, even if you find you have the funds and you find an attorney ready, willing, and able to take your case. Having filed the case, one cannot guarantee you how soon that will happen.
Exactly.
And I tell you, that has been one of the challenges with both the matters we were speaking about, in particular with Gemma and Thompson. While it's appearing to be current issues, because the judgments or the impacts of the judgment are now being addressed, these are matters that arose in 2013 and 2014.
Okie dokie. There you have it, folks. Now, George is scooting around. Very quickly here, I have a couple of comments. Arthur Langine says, not Arthur, I'm sorry, it's T.F. Richards. He says, we have to remember in our type of governance, the office of the Governor General is only an illusion. The power buck rests with the Prime Minister. So what's new? Ralph Gonsalves had a whole forum on the powers of the Prime Minister. TF also says, once KCM can't get his way with you, it's pure problems. It's time Grenadians put that in their pipes and smoked it. But then again, we're like horses with bridles. Carla Clement says, that's really sad and a cause for alarm, Mr. Phillip. She's talking about the interview you just heard. And Arthur Langine says, well, Mr. Phillip, how do you guys make money? Okay, folks, quick little break here, and then we're going to come back with what I promised you earlier on, and that was a visit from Mr. Anthony DeRiggs. Hang in there.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carriacou on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harvey Vale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis courts, and in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton Home.
Welcome home.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company.
And in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m.
Householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Alrighty, folks, we haven't heard from Anthony for a couple of weeks.
But
he's back with us this morning.
Grand move.
And what he has to say may sound familiar to many of you. This piece is captioned Grand Move and Grand Charge.
I'm ready to peel some wood. You see the wood there? Grand Charge. Now, most Grenadians are familiar with the word Grand Charge. And I tell you, some have been very good practitioners of the Grand Charge at one time or another in their lives. Now, simply put, a grand charger is one who likes to bluff. You're going to find them everywhere, in St. George's, in Grenville, in Wov, in Quako, Petit Martinique. Grand chargers all over the place. Politicians or big practitioners, I tell you, they're going to do this and they're going to do that just before election. Grand charge. So a grand charger likes to bluff and say things, and you know, he wouldn't accomplish it. Just grand charge. Never actually follows up on the pretense. The move is sometimes meant to frighten someone. And we have another word, the grand move. The fellas in Grenada, they call grand chargers, and grand move was a popular name. So it's often used, the grand move, to describe the actions of the grand charger, the move itself. Now, even policemen were known to be good at the grand charge and the grand move. And they go through all kinds of motions pretending to arrest people. And sometimes they don't arrest anybody. Take the policeman once called the Pumpkin Bam Bam, for example. One time he arrested a fella by the Market Square in St. George's. The man called him by that name which he didn't like. So he thought that was grounds for arresting him. You scratch up the man. You remember the word scratch up, when police used to just hold people by the seat of the pants, pulling upwards and making the apprehended person walk all the way to the police station. The worst thing was to see a drunken man being arrested and scratched up. Now, when grand charge, Pumpkin Bam Bam, he reached a spot when no one was looking after arresting the man. He decided to let the fellow go, but not before giving him a speech. This is what he said. Man, you know I don't like your name. He's a big man. You're making me shame in front of all them people. I know your family, I know your father, I know your mother, I know your people. You come from good people. Next time you call me by that name, I go drop a bull pistol on your back. And he let the man go. Grand move. Some people have been such masters of the grand charge or grand move that the nickname stuck to them for their entire lives. A certain grand move fellow in Quako, well, he had his own slogan. Grand is a word, and move is the action. Once grand move made a bunch of fellas from the mainland duck for cover. The man grabbed a piece of wood. You see the wood you see in the picture there? He grabbed a big piece of wood. And he pretended he was about to fight. Began flinging his hands in the air and making all kinds of idle threats. It was only Papi showing. Those who knew him, they laughed because they were aware all the big voos he was making was simply Grand charge. Our grand charger will bust your head with an imaginary stone. You would even pretend you have one in his pocket. But the action is only meant to scare you off, to make you get afraid. Call his bluff. Does nothing. All he wants to do is frighten you with loud songs and words. Put his hand in the pocket as if he have something in there to bust your head. All the man doing is playing something we used to call pocket pool and looking to see if you're going to run away. Now, never worry about the dog with its grand move. Dogs are good at that. The grandest move is usually made in front of its master's gate. It remains a truism that all dogs are bad in their own backyard. Woof, woof, woof. They bark in the street, but that bark turns into a lion's roar in front of their owner's house. Then you make your own grand move by grabbing a piece of wood or a big stone, and both you and the dog run away in different directions. It is a case of big grand chargers running for cover and running from each other. Now let me tell you something. The silent dog is the one to watch. It sneaks up on you without even barking. It never wastes time barking or making any kind of grand move. Then you have to scamper away to escape its seething anger after it sinks its teeth into your kajam. That's the area behind your shin. It is a fact that barking dogs seldom bites. Barking people too. I vividly remember the story about the man in Grenville who had cutlass passing in his land. Someone was obviously stealing his crops. The man wanted to protect his yams, his plantain and green fig. He crept close to a mango tree and he knocked his cutlass against a stone and shouted, "Who dat?" The thief, hitting his own cutlass on a stone, replied, "Who dat say who dat day?" The landowner, angry but scared, bawled out, "Who dat who ask, who say that day? Come out, let me bust your tail." And the thief in a gruff voice answered, "Who dat who say that who ask, who say that day? Bring out your ass, you go see who dat." So it was pure grand charge on both sides, both ends. Who that day, who say that day, and all kind of foolishness. None was brave enough to make a real move. Well, except the grand move. And both were frightened as a woman called Muffin, who pretended to be a Tessa Bar John. But she flew in the arms of her friends after a serious confrontation with a Bar John woman in Loco Cottage. She resorted to threatening words. "All you hold me. I say, hold me before I cripple she backside. I say, hold me." She said those words as she pressed hard against a man standing nearby. She was grand charging, actually praying for the man to hold her. And you know something? Don't forget the man who drank up his Tanya log, sea moss, his Bob and Day. That was his aphrodisiac. He went home feeling strong like a lion, contemplating his intended superb marathon bedroom performance. And in the still of the night, the telephone rang. His wife picked it up and listened as her girlfriend inquired, "How your tiger doing there?" She replied, "It was the perfect description of a grand charge man." "You're talking about that grand charge Mako? Eh? That big Mako? Lord, I never see a man like that. He told me drunk up Tanya Log and Bob and they see most all kind of thing and he ready for action. And the man kissed me, hold me tight. And perhaps he fell asleep. Grand move. Remember also, again, politicians are good grand chargers. They showed before election. Work for everybody. Yeah. You go wait till cock a teeth. Grand move and the grand charge. Anthony Wendell DeRiggs.
Wow. Whew. We made it through. Went the whole 9 yards. Thank you very much, folks, for being patient, being understanding, and staying with us all the way through. I do try to be accommodating to as many people as I can, and, well, there you have it. Time to scoot, but not before I leave you with a parting word. Psalm 34, verses 17, 18, and 19. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and saves those who are crushed in spirit. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. Remember that. Psalm 34, 17, 18, and 19. Okay. Folks, that's going to do it for today's edition of Good Day Grenada. Thank you so much for joining us. Please spread the word and be sure to join me again tomorrow morning, by His grace, 9 o'clock, for another edition. God bless you.